Welcome to Everyday Office. This is the podcast about making the tedious parts of your job a little less tedious and the interesting parts of your job a little more interesting. My name is Neil Malik, and today I'm here with Melissa Peoples, a Microsoft geek after my own heart. Hi, Melissa.
Hey, y'all.
Melissa, you may know her from her YouTube channel, which is named Admin Gurus, after the business she runs. In her business, she coaches and trains executive assistants, and she's also a very popular conference speaker. And that's actually where I ran into her, speaking at an administrative professionals conference. And I know that, she's all over that intersection that I love so much between what you can actually get done at work and the kinds of tools that you need to be able to make that happen. So thanks so much for joining us today, Melissa. How are you doing today?
I'm so excited to be doing this with you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So in talking about what we might talk about here, one of the things that popped up, it made so much sense to me. So I was just talking, shocking turn of events here. Before the recording started, I was talking to Melissa. So I'm going to tell you what we were talking about just a second ago. I talk a ton about the types of tools you can use to solve different problems, but it's really great to have somebody who is a real subject matter expert, and especially with a specific group of people and a specific problem they face. And so in Melissa's work, working with executive assistants, I cannot think of a group of people more taxed, more pulled in so many different directions, more distracted. I mean, not that they're distracted, but that they have so many distractions hitting them on an everyday basis. And then I think about my own week this week and how it's already coming apart at the seams. And I think to myself, I need more of this discipline in my life. So Melissa wants to come in today and talk about something called a productivity roadmap. And I could not be more on board with this. So Melissa, why don't you tell me what a productivity roadmap is and what it's going to do for me?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that people are coming across so much, because there's so much information overload, there's information coming on all the social media sites and your email and, texting and a ton of information coming at you. So productivity roadmap is you kind of honing in and being really reflective on you and your working style and being honest with yourself and say, okay, where are my gaps? Where do I have a technology gap, or where am I wasting my time? Just as much as I do, being that we're tech geeks, people will ask all the time to, how do I fix this? Well, it's kind of hard to know how to tell someone to fix it. I can tell you the tool, but if I don't know your working style, I don't know how you process information, it's really challenging to take those next steps to say, okay, you need to tweak these things. So a productivity roadmap is, one, you looking at yourself, being very reflective, honest with yourself. Hey, these are some areas I want to improve on. The second step is actually making a plan to focus on them and execute so you make them a habit. And then the third one is take that next step. What is the second and third? So you're building on your productivity tools rather than just sort of going, I don't know, somebody fix me. That's sort of it in a nutshell.
Gotcha. And where does that start? Is this a pen and paper type of situation for you personally, or is it something that you start in a digital tool of some kind?
Yeah, I think for me, I really enjoy tactile writing. I don't know. For me, it's just kind of a way to get away from technology. But I sort of start there and really think about, okay, what am I doing wrong? Or what are some areas like, how can I change and be more productive? Kind of really thinking about best practices and kind of being super reflective. And for me, that always happens in a journal. And then I take it from there. And of course, I move it to OneNote because that's where my world is and I love it. And then that's actually where I share it out as well. I try not to keep my productivity roadmap to myself. I print it out and I keep it in front of me because every single day I should be activating on one specific task, but I'm being very purposeful and intentional on, making that productivity habit a part of my life versus something that I do, this week and next week, and then I forget about it for the next quarter or year.
Yeah, totally hear you. And the pen and paper thing, my wife mocks me for as many notebooks as I pick up at the store, and especially as much as both. I know you and I both espouse this use of OneNote a ton. But at the end of the day, there's something nice about sitting down with a paper notebook and a nice pen and getting your thoughts out and sort of shuffling things around a bit. That's very nice. Okay. So what does it really look like? For example, if you're supporting somebody, what does it end up looking like in terms of building the structure to your life or to the day or to the week? What's that actually come like?
Yeah, so I am actually a big fan, if you're an executive assistant, of doing both a
Mm-hmm.
productivity roadmap for you and for your executives, because I find that your executive can manage and process information very differently than you
Mm-hmm.
might. And it's not a one size fits all. So it has to be fluid. So for me, for example, I noticed that there are some certain tasks that I don't naturally enjoy doing, and I was avoiding them.
Uh-huh.
And I was just really honest with myself, like, okay, I need to stop this procrastination of things that I really don't like. And so for me, I use my calendar, my Outlook calendar, to manage my life and not just my executive. So
Okay.
my calendar is just as busy as theirs. I'm sure you've heard of time boxing or time blocking. Depending on who you're talking to, they say it differently. But I use some of those tools to make sure that I'm being intentional with my time and not sort of, kind of get distracted and then I never get anything done by the end of the day.
Sure.
And then I'm also looking at my executive and going, okay, how did they process information? Where are their gaps? And it's a conversation that we have every year. I have a strategy session at the end of the year, usually like October, November. And we're sort of talking about, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, how do we fix it? And so I actually build one out for both. And so, for example, if I have an executive who is really bad at kind of having meetings here or there, I will implement time boxing and, strategic days so that they're focusing on a specific vision or strategy on Monday, and one-on-ones and, meetings with their direct reports on a specific day of the week. Okay. So it depends on you, your working style, your executive and their working style, and what are their gaps and what are you trying to fix?
Gotcha. And I was watching one of your YouTube videos about that concept of putting time blocks into your Outlook calendar. Now, when you do something like that, are you doing it all on a single Outlook calendar, or are you kind of layering two calendars on top of one another? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I do it on one. I think the interesting thing when you're talking about time boxing, do you call it time boxing or time blocking? I'm just curious.
Honestly, I probably call it time boxing more than blocking, but you know.
It's funny because you hear people say either one. So I'm just going to say time boxing too, because that's what I would naturally.
All right.
I think that's what I'll naturally say. But so for time boxing for me, I do keep it on one calendar because I think that, in our life, we're so busy, even as entrepreneurs, and we have our home life and we have our work life, and figuring out that right immersion is challenging. So I really do keep it to one calendar because I think it's not as confusing. But I really think that having a visual cue when you're looking at your calendar, this is what I'm supposed to be focusing on today, really is powerful. Right. Outlook released those insights discovery, which I love. If you haven't used it, you should definitely check it out. But it really does help you even say, okay, this is how much time that you're focusing on this area or that area. And it allows you to have some time for focus and just kind of helps you analyze your time. But I definitely keep it just on one calendar and make sure that, you're driving some of those best practices and goals that you really want to reach, and something visual that you're looking at all day long on your phone too.
Yeah, when you mention that, that is an add-in that I have never worked on before. The Insights tool. I've never popped that open before. And in setting up for this, I was looking at it, and that really looks interesting. So help people out here. If you go into, is it the Office 365 store inside of Outlook where you can get this add-in?
Yeah, it should actually just be in your toolbar.
Oh, really? It's automatically in toolbar? Okay, so it's automatically in toolbar. And then is it looking at your inbox and your calendar and things like that?
Yeah, so what I love about it is it does a couple different things. So one of the things that's really great, especially for executive assistants is, well, and even just for anyone that's using it, sometimes you might send an email that says, hey, I will do this. And then you completely forget that you just promised that you're going to have some deliverable. So it will actually go through your calendar and say, hey, I see that you said I will. And it will remind you, and they'll ask you, do you want to make this a task? And you're like, oh, yes, absolutely. It'll go through your calendar and say, hey, you haven't met with this person for a one-on-one in quite some time. Do you want to schedule another one? It'll tell you who you're meeting with and how often and how much downtime you have. Like, it's really powerful. It's really just taking, analyzing your inbox and your calendar and circling that back around to kind of give that visibility back to you so you can see how are you using your time, how productive are you being, are you spending it with the right people. Wow. It can be super powerful. And you can say, you can actually decide who are important people for you to meet with. So you can identify me or your executive or their direct reports as someone who's really important in your day. So it kind of hones in a little bit on them in a different way. So it's really powerful tool. Yeah.
That's really interesting. It made me think of, I was thinking of that part of Outlook that if you say, see attached or something like that. Now, it's catching whether or not you actually did attach something. And Gmail does that too. But this sounds like really a whole other level of insight into the types of things that you talk about, the types of things that you are and are not doing. That's really interesting. I can see it, though, on both sides. I can see it either being the most helpful part of your world or the most annoying thing. And there's really not a middle ground. There's not going to be anybody who's like, yeah, I use it sometimes, Yeah.
I think that the really powerful thing that for executive assistants is that sometimes you're partnering with an executive and they're, not the best at telling you, hey, I said, I told so-and-so that I'm going to do this. And so it's always this case of catch up. And the fact that Insights works for you and your executive is really powerful. And you can analyze their calendar as well, which I highly suggest doing. I think my top YouTube video is about analyzing your executive's time. And I did that, a few years ago before this came out. And if you can really utilize both of these and figuring out, hey, because if you look at someone and I said, hey, Neil, I'm looking at your calendar. Did you know that 40% of your time is focused on one-on-ones? Whereas, only 10% of your time is focused on, strategic marketing. That may not be the right fit for you. And you may want to flip-flop that and say, okay, I actually want 40% of my time on marketing and 10% on one-on-ones. Right. Well, you can't know that if you're not analyzing it, looking at it, and making, an informed decision about it. So that's to me where it's really powerful.
And so many people are really bought into this idea of measuring things so that you can improve on them. But it's always felt like analyzing your calendar and analyzing your day-to-day actions really isn't data. But what you're saying is it's really turning it into data that can be analyzed. Oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to have to dig into that a lot more. It feels like the next big thing for me. That's really cool. Okay, so we talk about working in Outlook. I think, going back to your idea of building out a roadmap for your productivity and then sort of translating that into blocks of time is great. And then YouTube happens, and then your inbox happens, and so let's pick your inbox, for example. Sure. Do you have any, this is what I do in my inbox types of suggestions? Because right now I can tell you for certain that I'm wasting way too much of my time in my inbox.
I actually say some pretty kind of crazy things when I talk about inbox, and people usually come to me and like, oh my God, Melissa, can you actually do this? And absolutely, I'm going to say yes. But my top tips are, one, I think people look at their inbox very static. They never change the view, which to me is interesting because I can't tell you how many people I've partnered with and I'm looking at their calendar and I'm like, or their inbox, and like, for the love of God, do something about this right here. But it's because they're looking at it by date. And for me, you have to make the tool work for you. So most of us are in our inbox quite a bit. And I would say just by simply changing the view from date to type, and I'm going to kind of say this as an EA, but as a business owner or someone that's in meetings, you're going to get emails that are an actual email. They're going to be meeting declines, meeting accepts. Right. There's going to be out of office, all of those things. So if I get, and I think it was at APC, and I asked how many of you in the room get more than 100 emails a day? And the majority of the EAs were getting like 300 emails every day. And so if I individually go through those emails one by one, that is a huge amount of time. And I really don't have time to do anything else. But if I switch from looking at the date to view, it will collapse like all the meeting accepts or all of the out of office or, all of those in one. And with one click, I can delete them and then focus on my actual emails. So I think one, don't be static with how you view. Secondly, going back to the time blocking, I actually keep 2 slots. I only check my email twice a day. And I think the key to that, people always ask me, like, how does that happen? And the truth of the matter is, most people, if it's urgent, they're not emailing you. They're, they're hitting you up on IM, they're texting you, they're running by your desk. They're not generally going to be emailing you. Right. And so I also have the communication with my team and say, hey, listen, this is how I work. I'm really trying to focus on these deliverables. So I'm not going to be sitting and checking my email all day. If you need something urgently, text me or IM me, but don't email it to me. And I have found more people will respond to me and be like, will say that to them, that is so empowering, because it's the one thing that we all struggle with is, overload in our inbox, but we don't ever talk about best practices. We never talk about what we're going to do or how we're going to manage it. We just all sit there frustrating, like, somebody make it stop. Yeah. So I actually am pretty hardcore. I just refuse to let someone else's priorities derail my productivity or my success because I'm focused on what's top of mind for you. And then I guess the third thing that I would say in your inbox is I'm a strong believer in getting your inbox to 0. I think you can absolutely do it, but you have to be intentional with it. And I don't think that 6,000 folders work. Simplifying your life, simplifying your folders, and definitely using the tools on your phone. If you are in the Outlook environment and you have an iPhone, don't use the iPhone app for Outlook. Use the Outlook app for Outlook. I know that sounds like,
Could I, I'm just going to snip what you just said. And every time I have an executive who comes to me and complains about their iPhone, I'm just going to play that video and walk away.
Just here you go. It makes your life so much easier if you just use, I think you said this in our YouTube video that we did at APC. And I say this, it's now my new favorite saying is like, use the right app or use the right tool for the right app. Yeah, that's how you said that. But if we could just get people to do that one thing, is use the right tool, we might be out of jobs.
And just to build on that a little bit, before the podcast started, I was telling Melissa that I'm not that great with the interpersonal stuff. Like, if you come to me and say, my boss is trying to sabotage me, I don't really have any insights for you on that. But I was listening to a podcast recently just about running businesses. It's called Two Bobs. It's a fantastic podcast. I'll put it in the show notes. One of the things that they go back to over and over again is that policy always defeats preferences. And the great thing about policy is all policy is just a decision somebody made ahead of time. So what Melissa just said about, hey, everybody, I am going to check my email twice a day. And if you need to get a hold of me, here's how you're going to do it. She just made a policy. She just stated it in plain black and white terms. It's not it's not ridiculous. It's not like you're saying I am leaving and nobody could ever talk to me again. You're just saying, listen, it's completely toxic to my brain to sit there and just look at my inbox change every 10 seconds. It's impossible to make any forward progress on anything. So setting it out very cleanly and saying, this is my policy about email, solves so many of those problems that people are thinking come down to technology problems. They're not they're not technology problems. They are choices that you're making. Just like I choose to watch way too many YouTube videos. Hopefully my wife is not listening to this. She's going to say, that's what you're doing in the office every day. You're watching those YouTube videos. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I do think it's one of those things that we should be communicating about how we work with technology. And people are so frustrated with information overload. And, I've got so many emails, or, everybody has a Teams channel. You're like, I don't know, I'm getting so much information because I'm a part of 100 teams and I don't know how to process it. And I think that as we adopt different technology, the miss is that you don't have conversations about best practices. I actually do have you ever done a start, stop, continue before?
No.
So it's a really cool session where you get your group together. I usually do this at our strategy sessions, and I sort of facilitate it. It's where you each pick a topic and say technology, let's just say, and you say one thing that you want to start doing, one thing that you want to stop doing, and one thing that you can continue doing. And we actually do this for our executive business partner all together, and we tell them, hey, can you start doing this, stop doing this, and continue. But we also pick one piece of technology that we work on, and we do the same thing. And what I have found is really powerful is because people just don't have those conversations. They don't talk about technology. They don't talk about how frustrated. I think as EAs, we hear everybody's frustration about, somebody make it stop. There's too many meetings, or there's just, I can't keep up. And then, but again, we're not talking about it, and we're not providing the solutions, making the policy and activating on it. So, we take a policy that we just said, as a collective group, the very first policy we agreed on was we were going to stop sending the welcome and thank you emails. We just were, as a group, we're going to, I care about you enough that you don't need 20 emails that says, oh, you're welcome for blah, blah, blah. Yeah. The next thing we picked is that we were going to start using Outlook tasks instead of emails. If it was a task that had a hard deadline, something that you need from me by, Friday, instead of sending me an email that, because I've got 6,000, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Yeah, of course. Give me it concise and what's the priority level? When do you need it by? I mean, so we really started changing the productivity of the team because we talked about some of these things that, we're all dealing with. We just, we need to talk about them.
That's great. Yeah, that kind of framework is really powerful. Until you are in a scenario where you are in the mix with so many different personalities, so many different smart people who've got ideas of how to accomplish things, you don't realize how much goes unsaid and how many conversations people aren't having, and it goes down deep inside. I think there's something to be said about marriage counseling there too, right? Like it's the more you swallow it down, the more. Anyway, we're not going to go that direction. It's not that kind of podcast, but it's the same basic concept, right? You build a little structure where you can have a clean, simple conversation, and everybody can agree that, oh yeah, we are frustrated by this thing, and if we just stop doing this thing and we start doing that thing, that's a really great way of framing it. There's a book that I keep referring back to in my life called Gamestorming, and I feel like that's probably just along those same lines where, when you have to make a decision, when you have to facilitate a conversation, when you have to facilitate a meeting or get ideas going, it's great to have some sort of simple game structure that says, like, start, stop, and continue. We need to identify a start, we need to identify a stop, we need to identify a continue, and just by forcing things into just that little bit of a pigeonhole that allows people to say, oh, okay, so I will come up with one of those types of concepts. Whereas when you say, okay, everybody, brainstorm now, what's all the things we should keep doing that by itself is like the most abstract, meaningless garbage in the world. But that's really interesting. I'll have to start working towards that. It's so many times I'm in this world of, making sure everybody knows where all the buttons are. And then I leave and everybody's like, so how are we going to have a conversation about this? Now I need to make sure I need to build some of that conversation time into my classes more. That's great.
Yeah, and for us, we keep it on a timetable too. We'll say we're all working on this one because it does take time for people to adopt new technology. It is definitely new muscle memory, and they probably have done something completely different their entire working career. So it's a change, and so we actually do it by quarter. And so and we've made the commitment to one another that we'll remind each other, hey, you sent me an email instead of a a task, and we just kind of remind each other until it becomes that habit that you don't even think about anymore. And then everybody is more productive, because if I don't need to reply to your email, if it's just a task, you need this from me by Friday, and it doesn't need to be this big, long, email conversation, I can just accept it and move on. There's no need for me to have to reply, and then you reply back. And I mean, if you just need something from me, great. If I can't get to it, I can let you know. But it is just shifting up and agreeing on better ways of working so that everybody has a better work-life immersion, and you can focus on your actual job versus answering all day long.
But the tedious part is really what we want to spend all of our time and energy on, right?
Yes, that's the sad part.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It's brought insight to the way that I'm going to approach some problems here. Do you have any last tip, trick, best practice you want to make sure we throw on top of everything? A bow on top, a cherry on top, if you will?
I always like to remind people that if you are in an ecosystem, just use the tools that are within that ecosystem. That's really going to help you be the most productive. Don't try to piecemeal different tools to help fix the problem that you think is technology that Microsoft probably already has a tool for. So, I think just being really thoughtful and reflective about, at the end of 2020, what do you want your productivity to look like? Be honest with yourself about where your gaps are, and then make a plan. Understand that it's going to take time to build that habit. Make a plan and just go crush it and make it happen.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that. And to your point, for a solid year, I was telling everybody in the world to use Trello. I thought Trello was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then Microsoft came out with Planner, and I thought to myself, it's kind of cheap that this is basically a direct replica, a duplicate of Trello, but it's in the Microsoft ecosystem, and it's completely painless to invite your people to do the tasks and everything else that needs to happen. There's so much there's so much power behind being able to have all those pieces interoperable. And to that end, like you said, if people are getting into Microsoft Teams, I cannot stress hard enough. Look at those little plus signs at the top of the screen in Teams. You can drop a OneNote notebook and Planner and like 42 other things directly into Teams, and just that's where everything is. It's so easy to use. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all the valuable insights.
You're very welcome.
It's going to be really helpful for 2020. I know it already in my heart. So real quick, you have something happening in 2020. You are going live on the road. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so super excited. So we are actually taking the conferences that we would normally, these topics that we would normally speak at the bigger conferences, we're going to take them and start a roadshow. We're starting in Houston, Texas, January 30th. And we're really just trying to make these topics affordable to executive assistants so that they can have, really powerful and impactful careers going forward, and at a price hopefully that they can afford, because it is a little challenging, I think, for EAs to get funding, unfortunately. So we're working on changing that. We're also doing lots of things live. You can check us out on LinkedIn or on our YouTube channel. Hopefully we'll do some more one-on-ones with Neil. You can hop back over on my channel and do another collab.
Any day. Absolutely.
So this year we'll be in 15 cities. So if you can check my website out at melissapeoples.com and see what city that, if we're close to you, hopefully you can come join us.
Perfect. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, every bit of Melissa's information will be in the show notes or the video description or whatever you're looking or listening to this on. Thank you so much for your time today, Melissa, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for having me, Neil. Bye, y'all.
Bye.